Hey, kia ora. Helen Brahms here, coming to you live from Surprise in Arizona. Hope you're all having a super fantastic, sparkling day. Happy Valentine's Day. And welcome to Before the Dirt Nap podcast number 2024. And tonight we are talking, hang on. I totally didn't put my notes page up. Hang on. Where's my note? There it is. We're talking ancestral love stories, romance, and courtship through the generations. Oh, for the little romantics at heart. One of my favorite topics. So I hope you are all doing well. Oh my gosh. I don't even know where to start right now. Hang on. My notes are all over the... Where the heck did my notes go? Oh, there we are. Okay, so here we go. All right, so of course it's Valentine's Day, so I thought what a great topic to discuss the romantic stories in your family history. Family history contains all sorts of stories. There's murder, there's mysteries, there's romance in there. There's stories of oh jeepers, words have just totally gone out of my head. How does that happen? Stories of survival, stories of perseverance, stories of overcoming the odds. There are all sorts of stories inside your family tree. Anything except sci-fi, and even there's a little fantasy in there too. You could do just about any genre and it'll be in your family tree somewhere. I said just about any genre. But you know, romance, today is Valentine's Day, so I thought what a great day to look at the romance side. Yeah, we're going to be get these sleeves up. Sorry. So we're going to be talking with the romance side. So let's start with this. We're going to look into different things about. We're going to look into courtship, some of the traditions, arranged marriages. Yes, and believe it or not, arranged marriages still go on today. It used to be a very big thing in the day, and it still goes on today. We're going to look at love letters. Old-fashioned dating customs. We've got a whole bunch of stuff that we're going to look at. So, ready? Let's get going. So, love and courtship traditions from the past. You've got like arranged marriages and family matchmaking. There's the role of love letters and old-fashioned dating customs. So, let's have a look at those in this section on love and courtship traditions from the past. So arranged marriages and family matchmaking. Many marriages in the past were arranged for financial or social reasons. They wanted families to come together for business reasons, for financial support. One family helping another family out. You know, you want our help with your financial support. We want to marry, we want to marry into your family. There were those sorts of things. Then there were the social reasons, keeping within the class, making sure that people stayed married within the class. In the European royalty, you get a lot of cousins getting married to cousins within the European royalty because they wanted to keep it within the royal families, and they didn't want outside of their class. Family Bibles often record marriage negotiations in detailed notes, how the marriage negotiations went, what was promised. If my daughter marries your son, this is what you're going to give us, and all sorts of other things that may be in there. And that is considered, so that was the arrangement. And even today, there are still in some of the wealthy families, there are still some arranged marriages that go on for financial or social reasons. That is a tradition that has not gone away. It is still in place today, not as common as it was. Then you've got the role of love letters. Before phones, long-distance lovers relied on handwritten notes. Even those that lived in the same town, they got their handwritten notes as well. They would be the runners that would take, can you please go and deliver this to, and the letters would be sent off with a runner to go and deliver them. Civil War and World War II soldiers often sent romantic letters home, and some still survive today. You've got old-fashioned dating customs. In the Victorian era, they had courtship cards. Flirtation was often done through printed cards with secret messages. Then there were those that would run away and elope. Many couples ran away to marry, especially if parents disapproved. In England, a lot of them would run up to getting a green in Scotland. and I've been trying to remember all day when I was thinking of this topic. There is also a Getting a Green type place here in the US. It is not Vegas or Reno or anywhere in Nevada, but there was another place that was considered the Getting a Green of the US. And I can't remember what that place was. And I've been trying to find it, and it's somewhere in one of my notes from one of the genealogy classes that I've done that we came across that. But many couples ran away to marry, especially if parents disapproved, or they ran across state lines, because if here in the US they ran across state lines and eloped to the next state, because that state may have had the ages may have been different for parental consent. Yeah, parental consent. Did you know that women of the age of 18 were considered eligible to marry, but men required parental consent up until the age of 21? Yes. So if they were under the age of 21, some of them would run away to another state where they would lie about their age, because it could be that the state didn't require birth certificates to be produced or something like that. They just went on the word of the people. And in other states, there was a little stricter rule. So they may have gone to a state where it was a little more loose on the rules. And the tradition of hope chests. Young women stored linens and keepsakes for their future marriage. We actually talked about hope chests. When were we talking about those? Was that last night or the night before? But I even had a hope chest going. So the hope chests are still around, and basically it's a chest that you get, well, depending on what your container is, but it used to be a chest that the woman would sew linens for their house, like sheets, pillowcases, quilts, and they would embroider them. And they had no idea at that point who they were going to be marrying. They didn't know. Oh, they were even going back to the arranged marriages things. There were some families that arranged a marriage at birth. If a family gave, there would be somewhere families gave birth to a daughter, and that daughter would be promised to the son of another family. Yes, arranged at birth. It was just sort of like, really? But anyway, hope chests. So this is all the linens and stuff in the house, and their keepsakes. Anything they're going to need in their future marriage would go into this hope chest, and then the chest would be delivered to the house, and they would then be able to unpack all of this stuff and make up the beds, hang the curtains, the towels, all of that sort of thing that they had done. If your ancestors lived in a small town, check local newspapers for engagements, announcements, and wedding details. Oh, that's what I was going to do. I was going to go into newspapers.com, pull up some wedding announcements. How to find love and marriage records in genealogy. You've got marriage certificates and bonds. Early marriage records often included parental consent letters for underage brides and grooms. Bonds were sometimes required, proving the groom had enough money to support a family. There were the dowries that were given as well, but some of them were known as dowries, some of them were known as marriage bonds. In the newspaper announcements, there'd be an engagement and there we go. There'll be engagement and wedding announcements, often including personal details. Let me tell you how many details this thing got down to. You would have the engagement, well, the wedding announcements would include things like, this is the name of the bride, this is who her parents were, this is the name of the groom, this is who his parents were, this is how they met. It would have their how they met story in there. They got married on such and such a date at such and such a place. In attendance were, and then it would list all of their bridal parties, all the women and then all the men. And when it mentioned the name, it would say if they were a brother or if they were related to the bride or groom and how, whether they were a sibling or a cousin, if they were a good friend of the brides or the grooms. So those sort of details would be in there. Then it will go on to describe the wedding dress and the bridesmaids' dresses and what the men were wearing. And some of them even went into where they had the reception and what sort of food was served and how it was served. Was it served as a buffet? Was it served at the table? And then it listed all the guests that arrived. And it will say, members of the bride's family were in attendance were blah, 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 blah. Members of the groom's family in attendance were acquaintances and friends of the bride and groom. It would list everybody. Some of these articles would take up like half a page of the newspaper because it had all the details in there. I tell you, I love reading through those things because you can almost build a family tree out of what's mentioned in there. It's within reason, of course. And engagement, and then it would say at the end that they were going away on their honeymoon too, wherever they were going for their honeymoon. And when they returned for their honeymoon, this is where they would be living. So it gave you their address where they would be living. Meanwhile, while they're away on their honeymoon, they've got family members who have collected all the wedding gifts and taken them to their new home, where they will then come home and open their gifts. And the newspaper announcements, you'll also see milestone wedding anniversaries, particularly 50th wedding anniversaries in it. You might see some 25s, you might see some 50s, you might even see some 60s in there. But often in those stories in the newspapers, they would tell how the couple originally met. Then it would talk about their courtship and their wedding, and what's happened between when they got married and here they are 50 years later. This is how many children that they've had. This is who was in it. This is what they did to celebrate their anniversary. This is who was in attendance, and everybody that was in attendance is all listed in there. And if they are related to the bride and groom, how they are related to the bride or the couple that are celebrating. Church and parish records. Some marriage ceremonies were recorded only in church registers, especially before civil records were required. So based on when it was brought in that your country or your state were required to record a marriage via civil records, everything was held in the church registers. If you go to familysearch.org and go to their research wiki, when you put in there what state you're looking in the records for, or what country you're looking in the records for, it will tell you in there when they started keeping civil records for births, deaths, and marriages. Look for baptism and confirmation records, because they may list spouses and children. And you may even have, because sometimes it was a bit of a hike to go to the nearest church. And so some families would go there like once a year, and they might take three or four kids to get baptized at the same time. And they'll be listed in the church record one after the other. That's how I found my third great-grandfather and his half-sibling. And that's how I found out that he had a half-sibling. So we're just trying to find my fourth great-grandfather now. Then you've got war bride and immigration records. During World War II, many soldiers married overseas, and so you need to search a war bride's passenger lists. Now, I can tell you this. I have a great aunt. It was my paternal grandmother's sister who got married to an American GI soldier, and she was on the last war bride ship that left New Zealand for the US. And back in August of 2019, we were tripping around in Sparkles, my RV, and we met up with my dad's cousins, who are in Idaho. And they took us up to the train station, and they were telling the story of my great aunt's journey from on the ship to America, where she got off the ship, and then when she got onto the train, and this was the train station where she would have arrived in Boise, Idaho. And I was just fascinated with it. I mean, it was just a really cool story to hear. And so, you hear these stories around. Then you've got immigration records, sometimes list spouses traveling together to a new country. If you can't find a marriage record, check for wills. Spouses are often listed as beneficiaries in them. Listener stories, family love stories, and romantic surprises. Think about some of the stories that, there are so many stories out there. Everybody has a love story. Everybody has a love interest. I'm of the opinion of you love who you love, and it doesn't, as long as you're happy, and this is what I've told my nieces and my nephews, as long as you're happy, that's all that matters to me. That's it. Plain and simple. As long as, everybody has somebody out there for them, and as long as they are happy, I'm happy for them, because I love a good love story. Let's see, you've got famous love stories in history, such as Queen Victoria and Prince Albert, a royal love story that inspired the tradition of the white wedding dress. Eleanor Roosevelt and Franklin D. Roosevelt, a marriage built on political partnership and personal challenges. Then you have the World War II war brides, thousands of women who followed their husbands to new countries, often leaving everything behind. And I can tell you, Rooty Tooty back there. So what are some of the love stories in your family? This is one of the questions we have. What is the most romantic story in your family history? Did your ancestors elope, exchange love letters, or have an unusual courtship? And did your ancestors have a love story worth remembering? So share it with us in the comments and let us know, because I love hearing love stories. I'm a romantic at heart. Yes, I love reading romance novels, but to be honest, I only read them at night because it's part of my nighttime routine. During the day, I'm listening to or reading biographies, mysteries, adventures, all sorts of other books. The romance ones are saved for the evenings because that's my quiet time. Yes, it helps me. So love stories are woven into our family history, shaping who we are today. Here's my challenge. Find an old wedding photo, love letter, or marriage record in your family history, and who were the lovers in your lineage. Now, I can tell you this. My parents' 60th wedding anniversary is coming up in a couple of weeks. And 3 weeks. Hang on. 3 weeks, coming up in 3 weeks. And for their 30th wedding anniversary, so 30 years ago, we had a massive surprise party. They were actually have been away for a bit. So I had snuck into their house. I had a key. So it wasn't really breaking and entering. It was sneaking in. And I knew where they kept their wedding photos. So I got all the wedding photos. I went into work, and we had color copiers back then. And color copiers weren't that common at the time. And so we had black and white photos. So we color copied all the black and white photos from their wedding. We made this big board that we put all these photographs up on. I even had photographs of every single house that they had lived in, from the first one that I lived in all the way through to the latest one. And I had written on there the years that they lived in these different places. And we had it in their church hall. It was a fantastic evening. We had people who were actually at their wedding 30 years beforehand, including their flower girl. Their flower girl was Mum's younger cousin, and so she comes in with with her mother, who was my mum's aunt, or my great aunt. So they were there, and then we had a couple there that were a friend of my grandparents, family friends of the grandparents, great friends. And I remember Mrs. Thackeray. She was awesome. She comes up to me at one point, and she says, what time is this going to finish? She says, because, we saw your mum and dad off at their wedding 30 years ago, and I want to make sure that we're here when they leave tonight, because we had a surprise set up for them. And so I said to her, I said, in about 20 minutes, the limo is going to be arriving for them. And she's like, oh, I said, she's like, so I tell you, that was such an amazing couple. And so we actually had a limo come to the hall. And so when the limo arrived, I took out the overnight bag for them, which my aunt and I had doctored. Well, actually more my aunt than I, because she was getting back at my parents for the frangipanis. And frangipanis are the very, very fragrant flowers from Rarotonga, from the Cook Islands. And when my aunt and uncle got married, my aunt's sister brought over these boxes of frangipanis, and they use them in the bouquets, they use them on the table place settings, they use them in the boutonnieres, they used them everywhere they could. My cousin and I, when my aunt and uncle went into the bedroom to get changed out of their wedding stuff into their going away stuff, we got the frangipanis, and we made a trail from the bedroom door out into the living room area. We thought, meanwhile, my parents are grabbing handfuls of frangipanis and stuffing them into my uncle's overnight bag. It was awesome. And for years, my cousin and I actually got blamed for putting the frangipanis in there, until my aunt and uncle discovered it was actually my mum and dad that did that. So when my aunt came with me to make my parents' overnight bag, she had boxes of confetti that she just laid out my mother's nightgown, sprinkled confetti, rolled it up, tied it in a big knot, stuck it in the bag, put some more confetti in there. And then we got to the hotel, and we went to the hotel and we checked them all in. And then I think we had fruit baskets. We had gift baskets in the room as well. And they were staying at the hotel that's down in Oriental Bay. It overlooks, it's on one side of the street, you've got all the buildings. The other side of the street, you've got the Wellington Harbour. And so Mum and Dad said that they were standing there at like 11 o'clock at night, shaking out everything that was in their overnight bag. And Mum was not going to let go of her knickers in case they floated down onto it. So all these people walking down below, I think they were like 7 stories up or something, are getting showered in confetti that's coming out of things as their clothes are being shaken out, and there's showering people down below with confetti. It was hilarious. But You got to do these things. So when the limo arrived, I took out their overnight bag for them, then went back inside and announced that it was time for them to depart and what was going to happen next, that there's a limo driver that's going to take them to a hotel in town for the night, so they could have a nice evening in a beautiful hotel, and that we would pick them up the next morning. And so that's what we did. And we had a blast. The next morning, we had leftover food from the night before, so we brought that back home, heated it all up, and we had people coming over the next morning and talking about things, just reminiscing about the evening. And we got regaled with the story of shaking out their clothing over Oriental Bay so they could get all the confetti out of the bag. Just some of the fun stuff you get to do for your parents. So yeah, that was the last time I got to surprise my parents for their wedding anniversary. Ever since then, they've always been away on their wedding anniversary. Yeah. And it might have tied in with the fact that the birthday before that was kind of like their 50th birthdays. So we combined it into one party and had friends and stuff come over. All the friends knew that they were coming from Mum and Dad. I had told Dad we're throwing Mum a surprise party, but when he gave me the names of the guests that he thought would be good to invite, they got told it was a surprise party for both of my parents. So that's how I managed to surprise my dad on that one. But yeah, I love doing surprise, but it was the last time I got to surprise my parents for their birthdays and for their wedding anniversaries. So yeah, so now if I'm going down and there's a milestone thing coming up, I have to promise them that I am not involved in any surprises, nor do I know of any that are in progress. So yeah. But romance is such a great thing. And my parents, 60, they're coming up on 60 years, and I am so proud of them. And they have just stuck by each other through thick and thin. They've had challenges through, any marriage goes through any challenges, and they have weathered the storm, and they have, gotten to where they have gotten to 60 years of marriage, which I think is awesome. And I just love my parents, and I wish I could be there to celebrate their 60th wedding anniversary, but they're not going to be home because it's a milestone wedding anniversary, so they're going away on a trip. So I was sort of like, okay, well, we can have a late celebration when I get down to New Zealand. I can probably take them out for dinner or something for their anniversary and that sort of thing. So that's what I'm probably going to do. And they may see this, so they now got heads up that when I come down, I'm going to take them out for dinner to celebrate their 60th wedding anniversary, since I couldn't be there on the day. So with that, what are some of the love stories that have occurred in your family? Write them down. Let us know what's your own love story. You can even put that in there. And with that, we are out of here. So let us know what your favorite love story in your family tree is. Is there one that's been passed down through generations? And that's it. We're out of here. So go out, have a super fantastic sparkling evening. Enjoy your Valentine's Day celebrations. I got my little chocolate stash. I've been picking it throughout the day, because you always got to have chocolate on Valentine's Day. Mind you, chocolate's good any day of the week, any month of the year. It's just good 24/7. What can I say? I'm a chocoholic. So I have a chocolate stash that I specifically put aside for today. So it's been nibbled at throughout the day, and we got to go figure out what we're going to do for dinner. I haven't figured that one out yet. Yes. But anyway, go out, have a super fantastic sparkling evening, and we'll catch you guys back here tomorrow evening at 6 p.m. Pacific. And remember, if you want to join us for Networking Riches coming up on Wednesday and Thursday next week, just scan this code here and you get to come free as my guest, and we will see you then. But otherwise, we're back here tomorrow evening, 6 p.m. Pacific.